sexual act, you wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty.
Yes, sir.
1509-408, aggravated rape of a child with force. You wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty.
Yes, sir.
09409, aggravated rape and abuse of a child. You wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty.
Yes, sir.
09410, charging, posing, or exhibiting a child in a sexual act. Sir, you wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty.
Yes, sir.
09411, posing a child in a nude, lascivious pose. You wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty.
Yes, sir.
09412, sexual conduct with a child under 18 paying for that conduct. You wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty.
Yes, sir.
1509-413, touching a child under the age of 16. Do you wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty?
Yes, sir.
09414, 01915, each charging you with possession of child pornography. On each of those indictments, you wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty.
Yes, sir.
09416, charging you with posing or exhibiting a child in a sexual act. You wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty.
Yes, sir.
That's 09417, charging you with possession of child pornography. Sir, do you wish to change your plea from not guilty to guilty?
Yes, sir.
Please come over here to the witness. Raise your right hand, please. Best you can. I swear you'll make sure you answer all questions that we put you in the court matter. So, you got it.
State your name.
Joel,
How old are you, sir?
I am here.
How far have you gone to school?
I have a high school diploma.
Where did you go to school?
Marshall High School.
Under the influence of illegal drugs or alcohol today? Ever been treated for any mental, psychological, emotional illness or condition?
Yes, sir.
And are you being treated for that at this particular point in time? And you have been treated by a healthcare provider that has a specialty in mental, psychological, emotional illnesses or condition? Did you take any medication at that time?
Yes.
And the fact that you're not taking medication now, has that affected your ability to think clearly? I'm sorry?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Have you been treated for any ailment while you've been in custody?
No, Your Honor.
Taking any prescription medication? Under the influence of illegal drugs or alcohol today? And you're at the Barnstable County Correctional Facility. What unit? H. ADA Manu.
Thank you, Your Honor. On December 13th, 2014, 15-year-old Mike met the defendant for the first time. He was 27 years old at that time, and she met him at his home in Centerville. The defendant lied about his age and told him he was 21 years old at the time. She was in the defendant's residence when he provided her with dabs, a Class C substance, and videotaped her performing oral sex on him. With respect to the dabs, police upon execution of the search warrant also observed a large amount of Class C substance dabs as well as marijuana, such that it would be consistent with possession for future distribution or distribution as opposed to just personal use. The defendant forced to perform oral sex and offered and paid to perform oral sex, and this is actually on videotape. In addition, on that same day, the defendant videotaped and photographed while she exposed her bare breasts and her buttocks. The next day, on December 14th, 2014, the defendant and I were communicating with each other on Snapchat and Facebook Messenger. During this time, in the bedroom, the defendant directed him to take photographs of herself with her breasts and buttocks exposed, and then sent those photographs to his cell phone at his direction. Mike complied with the defendant's requests, and during an execution of a search warrant of the defendant and as well as the victim's cell phone, police and a subpoena that was issued to Snapchat to preserve this, the photographs that Ms. took of herself were observed and provided to the defendant and defense counsel with respect to the to that incident. On January 10th of 2015, the defendant videotaped and photographed 18-year-old while she was asleep on a bed in the defendant's residence. She was asleep during the entire event and possibly even unconscious in that one can observe from the video that she is not responsive even while the defendant is holding her hand and manipulating her hand. She does not stir except once when, without opening her eyes, she turns over and then turns back and then remains either sleeping or unconscious. Obviously, did not consent to any of the activities on the part of the defendant. This videotape was actually observed twice during the execution of the search warrant. There were two different views of the same incident that were videotaped by the defendant, and you can actually observe the defendant's face. At one point, as he's moving the camera, apparently you can catch his face and readily identifiable as the defendant. On November 15th, 2014, the defendant videotaped 17-year-old Lucy while she performed oral sex on him while at his home, and at 17 years old, the act of videotaping is what the defendant is pleading guilty to today. On January 23rd, 2015, the Barnstable police executed a search warrant at the home of the defendant and also on his cell phone, during which time they seized the above-mentioned videotapes and photographs as evidence in these cases. The police also seized marijuana and dabs, again, as indicated, consistent with distribution, future distribution of those controlled substances. Those would be the essential facts of the cases in which the indictments that the defendant is pleading guilty to today.
And through the police investigation, has it been determined if the digital images were transmitted into electronic cyberspace? Are they still out there?
We don't believe so, Your Honor. I believe it was a personal collection, and there is no evidence otherwise.
And was that determined by Detective Conley and his staff?
Yes, it was.
And what's your intention with respect to the storage of these materials in the event of an appeal or some subsequent proceeding?
Well, Detective Conley will keep them safe for the time being, and as soon as any issues of appeal have gone, as far as the time issues, Detective Conley would actually request that he can destroy them.
Available, and I just wanted to know if they were posted up somewhere.
And there's no
Is
evidence.
it called the cloud now, Attorney Moriarty?
It is, Judge.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence that it was distributed anywhere through any, with respect to some of these distribution cases, Judge. There's now these programs that
The devices were forensically evaluated by Detective Conley and his staff?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Marsh, you heard the facts that were just recited to me by the Commonwealth's prosecutor, District Attorney Manouk.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do those facts fairly and accurately describe your conduct in this case, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Anything that was just described to you that you don't believe to be fair and accurate? Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are admitting to the truth of the facts that were just stated to me that comprise the elements of all of these offenses for which you're now changing your plea from not guilty to guilty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that what you wish to do today?
Yes, it is, Your
Are you pleading guilty to each and every offense because you are guilty of those offenses and for no other reason?
Honor. Yes, I am.
So you understand you're doing that, sir?
I do understand.
Has anybody forced you to do that?
No,
Do so freely and voluntarily.
yes, I do.
Whether you wish to exercise your right to a trial before a judge or a jury, you should fully understand that you're giving up your right to confront the Commonwealth's witnesses who would come to court to testify against you. Civilian witnesses, law enforcement witnesses, and the like. Mr. Joel M. Morris, it is my obligation to inform you that you must assume that the acceptance by this court of a change of plea from not guilty to guilty will have the consequences. You will be required to submit a sample of your DNA to the state police for inclusion in the so-called state police DNA database, for which there is a fee of $110. Nevertheless, do you still wish to plead guilty?
Yes, I do.
Also, sir, given the nature of the several offenses that fall within the category of so-called sex offenses, you should understand that based on the guilty finding entered by this court today, you will be subject to what's called the sex offender registration law, be required to register as a sex offender upon your release from state custody. Is that in any way affecting your decision to change your plea today from not guilty to guilty?
No, no.
You had sufficient time to discuss all your options with Attorney Moriarty.
Yes, I have.
Are you pleased and satisfied with all of his efforts on your behalf, his legal representation of you, his recommendations to you concerning disposition today?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Has anybody forced you, threatened you to plead guilty today?
No, Your Honor.
You do so freely and voluntarily.
Yes, I do.
Wish to speak to Attorney Moriarty right now about any topic?
No, Your Honor.
Proposed indictments, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
9405, assault and battery, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
9406, posing or exhibiting a child in a sexual act, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
9407, possession of child pornography, guilty or not guilty? 9408, aggravated rape of a child with force, guilty or not guilty? 9409, aggravated rape and abuse of a child, guilty or not guilty? 9410, opposing or exhibiting a child in a sexual act, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
9411, opposing or exhibiting a child in a nude or lascivious act, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
9412, paying a child under the age of 18 for sexual conduct, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
9413, enticing a child under the age of 16, guilty or not guilty? 9414, possession of child pornography, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
9415, possession of child pornography, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
9416, posing or exhibiting a child in a sexual act, guilty or not guilty? 9417, posing of a child, possession of child pornography, guilty or not guilty? 9418, possession with the intent to distribute a Class D substance, guilty or not guilty? 9419, possession with the intent to distribute a Class C substance, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Probation department and subject to that GPS monitoring. So in light of their 1 year or more worth of credit, I indicated to Attorney Moriarty to be placed on probation 19 years from today, anticipating a release date sometime within the next 14 or so years.
Opposing a child in a sexual act, the sentence is no less than 10 and no more than 20. So the defendant has a maximum exposure of 20 years in the state prison. Possession of child pornography holds a maximum sentence of 5 years in the state prison. Opposing a child in sexual act, I already indicated, I believe is maximum penalty of 20 years. Sexual conduct for a plea is a maximum penalty of 10 years in the state prison. And with respect to possession to distribute a Class C substance, it's no more than 5 years in the state prison.
Charging with aggravated rape of a child with force, the court sentences you to the Massachusetts Correctional Institution, Cedar Junction, for a term of not more than 15 years and a day, and not less than 15 years.
Anything else? All right, he's all set. He stands committed. Thanks, Scott. That was a good day's work. Thank Dan for it as well.
Hey, Joel, do you have anything to say about today's sentencing?